It's full time.
Hello and welcome to Full Time, brought to you by AA Vitality. My name is Shane Crawford and we're going to go straight to Queensland. We're getting on with the show. Another awesome weekend of footy. Ayrton, Woolley, how are you? Come on in.
Going very well, thank you, Crawford. Actually feeling a little bit better too, seeing how Hawthorn are going at the moment as well, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a sec.
I haven't heard a score so far. No, I have. I know we're not too far off, three-quarter time. But the Hawks, well, all they can do is try their best. And as long as they're taking the ball through the middle, I'm OK. Take some risks, take the game on.
Whatever you say, Crawford. I know you're having to keep it all in there. Anyway, we better have a look at the round so far. It has been a good round of footy. It started with Sydney and GWS, of course, and then a big game on that Friday night, wasn't it, Crawford?
Yeah, absolutely. The Cats thumping Port Adelaide, 60 points. That was impressive. Brisbane fell across the line against North Melbourne. Melbourne, they're back. The D's, 56 points against the Pies and the Blues. What about that? Jack News kicking a goal after the siren. That was an incredible kick. How did he do it? I bet you if you give the ball to him another 100 times, I bet you he can't do it. And the Western Bulldogs smashing Adelaide as we thought they would. And the Saints have bounced back after a disappointing week last week against the Bombers. The Bombers very disappointing. We're going to have a look at that match because the Saints last week against the Cats, they looked tired. They were coming off a very short break, but they got handled big time. And today it was good to see them up and about. Brad Hill was very good. King kicking 3 goals. Jones has had an awesome season for the Saints. But that's what we expected from the St Kilda Football Club. We expected more from Essendon, a bit more fight. But unfortunately, they just seem to be dropping off at the moment, Ayrton.
Yeah, they certainly are, Crawford. That result could have been a lot worse. I think it was Max King might have had 4 or 5 goals in the first quarter. But it probably means Essendon now, even with that game in hand, would really struggle to make September. I'm interested in your thoughts on John Worsfold in particular, because obviously he's coming to the end of his time as coach with the handover to Ben Rutten. How do you think it's gone, Crawford? I feel like there's probably been maybe a few wasted years for Essendon. Do you think they've improved under John Worsfold? Obviously came in under some very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, he was brought in for stability with the football club, and I think he's really done a really good job from that point of view. Yes, you want premiership success, you want to be in the finals every year, but I think he's done quite well, really, when you consider that, you know, he's had a lot of key midfielders out of the side. They've had a bit of a make-up forward line for quite some time. They have become that real balanced side that you sort of want from a stability off-field and on-field. But Danaher's the real key missing ingredient for me. Stringer's been out for a little bit, but Danaher, we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know if he's ever going to play again for the Bombers. And that huge question mark, when he's your best player in the side, we know the potential that he has. That puts enormous pressure on your side and your list to produce the goods.
It certainly does. I mean, their forward line is almost dysfunctional at the moment. As you mentioned, Jake Stringer's out, and they do have a lot of other guys, Cale Hooker, Dyson Heppel, not in the forward line, but obviously elsewhere in the side. But what can they do from a list point of view? Because they really need to revamp that forward line from a key, tall perspective, don't they? Well,
they've got to work out what they're going to do with Danaher and whether or not he's going to head off to the Sydney Swans. So that's really important, or whether or not they think they can get the best out of him for the next 3 or 4 years to finish off his career. But I'm going to throw a bit of a left field suggestion, as we often do. There's a guy at the moment who's playing for Geelong. His name is Tom Hawkins. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's dominating at the moment. Now, he's a Cat, OK, and he's been a Cat all his life. He played for the Finley Cats as a junior. He's always wore the Cats from a jumper point of view. However, he's been getting, you know, 1-year contracts, and yes, they'll give him another contract next year for a year. But if you need a key forward for the next few years, I'd suggest go and have a chat with Tom Hawkins and his management, offer up a 2-year deal, maybe even 3, and I reckon he'd think about that. Why would you think about leaving the Cats? Well, I just think from a stability point of view, you know, to know that he's in the best form of his life, fitness-wise, he looks good. He's got a family connection with the Essendon Football Club. Just think about Stringer coming into that side, Tom Hawkins playing in the forward line, Tip and Woody underneath their feet. And the thing is with Tom Hawkins, you don't want him to come and dominate. You want him to just play his role, very much like when Dermot Brereton went to Collingwood and he helped out Severio Rocker. I think I think there's a role for Tom Hawkins, not only for next year, for the next few years at a football club with his experience. You know he'll get the #1 defender. It's going to help a lot of other players. And I don't think it's just Essendon, even though he's got family ties. Xavier Campbell, the CEO who's running the football club, they're cousins. So why don't you look after your cousin? But I think the Brisbane Lions with Hipwood is certainly a suggestion as well. Someone like Tom Hawkins coming in for a few years. Luke Hodge went up there to help the defence. It could be the Bulldogs. I just think outside the square, and Tom Hawkins is a perfect fit.
3 years, Crawford, would be a big call for a 32-year-old. I mean, you know some of these guys and what would be going through their mind. Do you think Tom would consider it?
Well, I think he loves the Cats. There's no doubt about that. He's got great connection and he's got lifetime friendships with a lot of those players. But do you know what? If he squeezes out another year with the Cats, but he thinks, no, I can definitely play for another 2, maybe another 3. He's not the player that has to push right up the field. He just needs to really work his area. He's a big get-out target too when sides are under pressure. And he'll take that real important key back. So I think it opens up in the areas for other players to really show and get the best out of themselves. So I reckon you consider it. Yep, at least get in front of him and ask the question. Not just because he's in good form last week. He's been in good form for the last 4 or 5 years. And I think when you bring someone with so much experience and someone who is just like a huge mountain in that forward line, it makes a huge difference and it gives you that focal point.
Well, that'd be certainly a massive coup for Essendon if they could pull that off. But you'd think Chris Scott and Stephen Wells and the Geelong list management team might have something to say about that. But one to watch maybe, Crawford, who knows, at the end of the season. There was another match today, of course, involving the Bulldogs and the hapless Adelaide. Another defeat for the Crows today. They almost played the Dogs back into form, didn't they, Crawford?
Yeah, well, the Dogs certainly got their bite back. They were very good right from the start, although Adelaide, you know, just into that second quarter had kicked 5 goals themselves, only finished with 8 for the match. But Norton was up and about. He kicked 6. Smith, almost 40 possessions, a youngster. And what I'm loving from him at the moment is just the way he's running and carrying the football. I think it was over 800 metres gained, which is just incredible. That's out of this world. And Bontempelli just has an impact when he needs to. He's kicking goals, he's winning the ball out of the middle with McRae. And the Dogs can be quite scary, although they're not a side you can really trust at the moment. They can make a run towards the finals. I think they're playing Melbourne next week, so that'll be a really good match, I think. I think it'll be a nice, tight fixture. But they're the side that sometimes when you see their very best, you think, why can't they do this all the time? But at the moment, we just don't trust them. If they can get up over the Ds and have a win, look out. You know, maybe it's a few years ago reincarnated. They might just come with a run now that Norton's in that side. They do have a very strong midfield and they've got some good young kids going about it. But Adelaide, unfortunately, they're not going to win a game. We said that last week. They're not going to win a game for the season. Tex Walker's 200th next week, so that's a great milestone. But unfortunately for Adelaide, it's just playing some kids, giving them some exposure to the big league and working towards the future.
You spoke about trust there, Crawford. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who do you trust? I feel like there's not many teams right now that we trust. I mean, I trust Richmond because you know what they've done over the past few years. Maybe Geelong, but they haven't always produced it in September more recently. So who do you trust?
I'm trusting Geelong more than ever. You've got to realise what they did to Port Adelaide the other day. Port Adelaide, all the other sides that have had longer break over the last week, and I'm talking about St Kilda against Essendon, I'm talking about Melbourne against Collingwood, and Port Adelaide against Geelong. They had a couple of extra days. They weren't able to get the job done. The other teams were. And Geelong are just so well organised and so they structure up beautifully. They've got players that have played a lot of footy together, so there's great chemistry and great connection. And it's, you know, you just look at Duncan when he gets the footy, the way Hawkins moves and points and where he wants the footy. You've got to remember, Ablett's not even in that side, but they've introduced a lot of young kids who are really running and breaking lines. And I trust Geelong the most out of all the teams at the moment, whether or not, you know, they're too old, too slow, the Hawthorn model, like a lot of people are probably doubting. But from what we've seen over the last few weeks, I think they're the #1 spot at the moment when you look from a trust point of view.
Just on Gary Ablett, you mentioned there, he'll join the Cats hub in a few weeks' time. Of course, went home for family reasons and he'll son, but he now wants to rejoin the club. So the AFL's final transition hub early September. The Cats are hoping to get him up earlier, but at this stage it looks more likely he'll be in that final hub. But it's time for the 4 points, Crawf. What have you got for us from the weekend?
Well, Lions, shame. We know they're in the window to win a premiership, but they're not kicking goals, they're kicking points. They need to fix this. They need to just go back, take a deep breath, kick it through the middle. Power tripped. We thought, especially with the advantage of a couple extra days against the Cats, that they'd come out and show us what they were made of, but it was disappointing. Still living in the past, maybe the match from Richmond a week ago. My boy Petrarca, hey, how good is he going? You know, I put my neck out many weeks ago saying how good is this young man, and he's absolutely delivering. And what about Jack Newne? His kick on the weekend against the Fremantle Dockers after the siren to give the Blues victory. That's what footy's all about. It was just a very special kick, great emotion. Here are the young players that weren't playing for the Blues but actually back at the hotel watching. Just have a look at this. This is what teamwork and football clubs are all about. It. Just really enjoying individual and team success.
Did you think he was going to kick it, Crawford? I mean, he had to move the photographer, he had to move the cords out of the way, the security guard. There was a bit going on, wasn't there?
I thought he was absolutely no chance. Absolutely no chance. But anyway, do you know what? He proved me wrong and I loved it. I was watching with my boy Charlie and we were very excited. We love seeing, you know, moments like that, and what a very special moment. And well done to Jack Newne's beautiful kick. Well done to the Blues who hung in there. I'll tell you what, everyone was blaming the umpire. Oh, was that a 50, you know, or a kick downfield? You know, when the ball went out of bounds, was it out of bounds? Yes, it was. It was deliberate out of bounds. And the thing is, Matt Tabata, if he had have manned the mark rather than running off down the field, the ball wouldn't have been kicked back inside 50. Fremantle would have won the game. So it's those little moments. It's not about, you know, it's not about the umpire's decisions and so forth. It's about just manning the mark, doing the best thing you possibly can do for the team at that moment. But anyway, we love it. We love goals after the siren, and we've seen Robbie Gray this year and now Jack Newnes. It's beautiful.
Certainly was a crazy 2 minutes. You can't help but feel, I don't like Carlton Croft, I will say, but you can't help but feel happy for someone like Patrick Cripps too when you see him in there celebrating with those Carlton players. But that was, I guess, a great moment, but there have been some less than great moments from the weekend, and that brings us to the Sunday roast.
Okay, AFL players, coaches, and now I think the hubs are going to be more at risk than ever because the families are now in, which is great for everyone, you know, to see family that they haven't seen for a long time and kids. But in hub life, you've got to do the right thing. So far this year, we've had players, we've had staff, we've had coaches step out of line at times. Yes, sometimes they would say, oh, we're very innocent and we didn't mean that to happen. Unfortunately, during the week with the Sydney Swans player, they did the wrong thing, copped a fine, out for the season. But you've got to try and make sure we can get through to a final series. So over the next 5 weeks especially when teams aren't doing so well and they're thinking about getting back home and getting on with their lives, you've got to do everything right. Don't stuff it up for everyone else. The AFL have done a magnificent job so far at keeping the season alive. We're thankful to South Australia, to Western Australia and also Queensland. But don't wreck it for others. Do the right thing. Hang in there. We're not too far from the end. We can see a finish line. We can see a final series coming up. And I just want all the players, all the coaches, all the staff and all the families that are in the hubs now, do the right thing. Come on, please, especially for all the football lovers out there.
Of course, you're talking on the back of Elijah Taylor and his breach. Sydney fined $50,000, 25,000 suspended. And we heard from the West Australian Premier today too. He said the Swans and the AFL had let everyone in Western Australia down because the Swans, of course, were quarantining when Taylor invited in his partner. So, you know, it's a big statement from the WA government. It'll be interesting to see whether that affects their bid for the grand final, but maybe not. Maybe it's a bit of posturing too, Crawf, who knows. But certainly, great point. We need the season to keep going.
Well, it's on a knife's edge. And we have done an amazing job as a football code to keep this game going. And we do want to see a final, and we do want to see a grand final, and we don't want it to be, we don't want the plug to be pulled. So hang in there. I know you're doing the right thing in your hub. I know you go down and sunbake only by yourself. I know you're doing the right thing, Ayrton, from a media and a point of view. So thank you. We appreciate that. But we've got to make sure all the players are doing the right thing.
I think that's more because no one wants to get around the Crawford. That's just different.
How are you going? Like, it's very important. I need to ask the question. How are you going up there, all right?
You like doing this, don't you?
No, I'm serious because you were pulled out of Melbourne straight away. You were meant to host this show, okay? You've been up there for a long time now. You've virtually had to jump straight on a plane, pack your bag. You probably only packed one bag, and you've had to live out of a suitcase. So how are you actually going?
No, going very well, Shane. Obviously understanding how everyone's doing it tough back in Victoria, so certainly not crying poor or anything up here. I think I've got the good end of the stick, certainly. So not complaining at all.
Yeah, I tell you what, your teeth are looking very nice and white, and you got a beautiful tan at the moment. You're glowing. You've got that Tasmania glow. You know, the boy from Tasmania.
Anyway, Crawford, enough about me. It's time to get on to what was going to be my favourite part of the show, actually, where we dissect Hawthorn again. Look, it hasn't been pretty in the past few weeks, and it's not pretty again tonight. The Eagles doing it pretty comfortably over there in Perth.
Yeah, the positive from the Eagles' point of view, they started so well, which is just a great sign, especially from a side that's been winning a lot. Just shows you they're really switched on, ready to go, and yeah, it was a perfect start. The Hawks are trying. They're trying to come through the middle, but you know, the West Coast Eagles are setting up extremely well. As long as they fight this one right out, that's all I care about. Yeah, of course, you'd love your team to win every now and then, but I think right now the Hawks just need to try and play a bit more, or to be braver and to take the game on a bit. And so I'm hoping that they can fight their way through it, kick a few goals and make sure they don't get smashed. Although West Coast are starting to really put their foot down, so look out.
Interesting, you've gone against Clarko a bit, have you there, Crawf? You want him to be a bit braver with the way they're playing? No,
I just want the Hawks to take the game on a bit, you know. So pull the trigger. Be braver with their kicks coming through the middle. Don't play slow and wide. But from a positive point of view, even though we're getting smashed on the scoreboard, at least they're trying to do that. And it's good to see Clarko introducing a few younger ones, although he's only drip feeding them in at the moment rather than giving a lot of them an opportunity at once. But I'm sure that'll happen, especially over the next few weeks, to reset and go next year because the season's over.
Yeah, so to end on that note, Crawford, that's the end of full time for the week, thanks to AIA Vitality. It has perked me up a little bit, though, I will admit, and so do all those Hawthorn fans out there. But I guess when my own team's been beaten, that you take some comfort in that anyway.